phrase "in the long run" always means that there will be a double shift. This is an example of a double shift. An economy is operating at full employment. There's a positive supply shock. Alright? In this instance, what would happen is you'd have short-run aggregate supply increase because of the supply shock. Which would cause the GDP to increase and the price level to decrease. This would also cause aggregate demand to decrease because there's more supply, so it has less value and people have less need for it. So aggregate demand would decrease, so would GDP, and price level would decrease also, but it would be above the previous one we just did. We directly graphed aggregate demand going down and short-run aggregate supply going up. GDP would be unknown because the new equilibriums fall on either side of the original, so we don't know where that point would actually be. Price level is down because both new equilibriums are below the original. Resource costs and wages would go down because both the price level and aggregate demand have been down, meaning that the company or business or whatever has been making less money, so they have less money to use on these things. When double shifting, the second shift is always short-run aggregate supply. When short-run aggregate supply decreases as both shifts in a double shift, that is called stagflation. Stagflation is an increase in unemployment and inflation at the same time. The main factor that increases economic growth is productivity. This change in productivity can be caused by an increase or decrease in human capital, which is this value, skill, and experience of workers, physical capital, which is things like land, machinery, and money and other resources used in your business, or technology improvements that could speed up the process or make it easier to do something. The potential growth, which is shown as an increase in the curve like this, for the production possibilities curve, is how much something can increase. The actual growth, which is an increase of a point, like this, is how much the thing actually increased. On the aggregate supply, aggregate demand graph, economic growth would either look like an increase in short-run aggregate supply, like this, or aggregate demand, like that. GDP, or gross domestic product, is the market value of all final goods and services produced in a country in 1 year. It can be calculated by adding consumer spending, investments, government spending, and net exports together using the formula C plus I sub G plus G plus X sub N. GDP per capita is a more accurate way to rank countries than just using GDP because it accounts for differences in population. To solve for GDP per capita, you take the GDP of a country and divide it by the population. The rule of 70 is used to estimate the number of years it will take for a variable to double. To use this rule, you take 70 and divide it by the growth rate of the variable that you are trying to find.